Hey human, welcome to Success in the City. My name is Helen Webster. I'm with the lovely
Sandra Scott, and our guest today is
Paul Winfield from Liverpool Airport.
And as Helen that she said, the man in the know, Director of Aviation Development at Liverpool. So he's responsible for all the new routes and getting airlines to come and go into new countries and new cities. So we want to know exactly what's going on.
I know, the longest banner that I've ever typed. So massive thank you for giving your time up. We know that you're super busy, so it's really kind of you to give your time up. And we've just been having a little chat off here, so there's loads of things that we're going to find out. So we're going to quickly go, okay, because we need to give Paul quite a lot of time because he's got loads of good stuff to talk about. So shout out to any kids, any little people who've done amazing things this week. Sandra, do you want to give a shout out to any little people?
Yes, I did have somebody actually, and I had it saved. Paul, if you want to go first, and I'm organised as ever, you know, and I'll find my young person because it was made up what they did, this sponsored event. Go on, Paul.
Have you got any little people, Paul?
I have, yeah. I've got 3. Keep me busy. It's quite nice to be on this call. Really gets me away from them for half an hour or so. But yeah, no, mine are 12, 8 and 7, and you know what I mean? Certainly before COVID, I think the thing for me was like not spending enough time. And I think, you know, sort of reset for me has been great. And, you know, it's my little one particularly, he's off playing football every 5 minutes. So, you know, he's Tuesdays, I think, is my only night away. So just shout out to every little kid, you know, made up to see them all having fun after being locked in for 2 years, and they deserve all the fun they can have in my eyes.
100%. And with the weather today is amazing, isn't it? Like for them all to be playing out, which is great. Are you ready, San? Have you found it?
I'm worried that my congratulations is your congratulations because you put it on the page.
I know you're going to talk about Erin, aren't you?
Okay, yeah. Well, I was, but if that's who did extremely well, and she was crowned National Grade 3 Champions of Gymnastics at the National Finals, which is
the City of Liverpool Gymnastics Club. That's who I was going to shout out to as well. So
Erin,
well done.
Erin, she used to. She's actually her mum is a friend of my wife's. I know Erin very well. She's amazing, honestly.
How mad is that?
I know it is. She went to nursery with my daughter always, and I kept in touch with the parents. So she's
isn't that
she's doing a gymnast, unbelievable.
And the commitment and the focus for young person. It's like your lads do footy, don't they, Paul? I know, and you're down there every week. You've got to take them to training. And the commitment from the parents it requires, getting the kids to all these activities constantly. You know, the kids need the support. So well done to her and her family.
Brilliant, well done. So that was a double shout out for them. A success this week for you personally. That's been amazing. We're going to go with Paul this time. Something that's happened to you, Paul. Or do you want to have a little think and we'll go with Sandra?
Go for Sandra first.
Go on, San.
Okay, well, a bit of a strange one. But I had a giant lump on the end of my arm, which came from nowhere, which was entertaining, that Ronan said was disgusting and was like a jellyfish. And I was very happy because people go, no, it could be sepsis, it could be this, it could be that. And I went the walk in and the nurse went straight away, oh yeah, know what that is, no problem. Give it a rest for a week. It's just, you've done too much with that arm. And I thought, okay, cool. So that was a little success because it wasn't anything horrendous.
Perfect. Perfect. Are you good, Paul? Or...
Yeah, no, I guess, I mean, it's been a blur of a week, but I actually managed after about 5 years to meet my eldest mate who I went to primary school with. When we were 40s, lived in Colorado for a long time. So with COVID, he managed to get back to Liverpool for a few days. So we managed to get a couple of beers in the halfway house in Bolton, and you know, you realise 40 years we've known each other now.
Brilliant.
Did you go to Bishop Eton, Paul?
St Anthony of Padua.
Oh, St Anthony, where my cousin went as well. But he's
not got very far, I'm afraid.
That's ace. That I love that when you see them and it's like you've never been away all those years later, which is lovely, isn't it? It's good friendship.
He left the Scouser and now he's got an American accent. So.
Oh, bless him. Amazing. And my success is that the wedding went ahead and we were in Swansea. So the wedding had been put back 3 times because Sarah's brother and sister both live in New Zealand, and now New Zealand are able to fly home. They were able to have the wedding, and it was just amazing. It was boss. It was just great to be out in there. So that's my success this week, is at the actual wedding, and it was beautiful. And we wish Sarah and Flinny all the best for the future. So we're going to play. Oh, go on.
And I minded your dog, who was fine, didn't get lost, nothing bad happened to it. Great, that was a success.
She's under my feet now. Just saying. Okay, so we're going to play this or that. Are you going first or am I going first?
But I'll go first then. Go on. This is an amusing one for me with Paul. Okay. Lufthansa or British Airways?
Is that, to me, it's got to be Lufthansa, hasn't it?
Yes, to explain why.
Well, from a purely biased point, I mean, they started flying into Liverpool in May, so we're going with those companies who support Liverpool. So definitely Lufthansa for me. They've put the money into the city of Liverpool, so they're my number one there.
Fantastic.
I'm going to go Lufthansa as well. I've never flew on either of them. I think I might have done a British Airways a long time ago, but I'm going to go Lufthansa for the same reasons as Paul. What about you, Sam?
Well, I'm going to go British Airways, obviously, because he paid for me to learn several languages before I went to university and did my degree in languages. So I'm very grateful to British Airways. The training I received when I worked for them was amazing. I have flown with Lufthansa once from Nairobi to Frankfurt position, and that was it, which was the infamous, and that was a red face when I had to get up in the night to go to loo and climbed over this guy who woke up when I was straddled across him. There's no other way to put it. That was with all my mates crying, laughing from the crew. That was awful. So that was my experience with Lufthansa. Although we did travel business class, they gave us an upgrade. So
I'm just going to say we've never had a little shocked face as one of our little emojis at the top. And as soon as you said you did that, a little shocked face.
Oh, it was terrible. I climbed across. He woke up and my face was there. The leg out. It was awful. That's just my life, really.
Perfect. Brilliant. Okay. When you arrive at the airport, okay, and you're going on your holidays, so not Paul when you're working day, or when you're going on your holidays, do you have a beer or tea or coffee? So would you go for like into the bar or into the cafe?
Yeah, but if I'm on holiday, I'll be honest, definitely a beer. It's got to be, hasn't it?
What about you, Sam?
Well, if I'm on holiday, it's not a beer because I don't drink beer. But if it's breakfast, I'd have a Bucks Fizz or something like that. If it's later in the day, I'll have probably a Bacardi or a glass of wine or something like that, definitely. What about you?
Alcoholic drink, because there's never a time zone in the airport when you're going on your holidays. Yeah. Go on, Sam.
Okay. Right, I'm still on my same track. EasyJet or Ryanair. Now
I had that.
Both from Liverpool. Hey?
Can't ask me that. Oh, that's a tough one. Right. Do you know what? I'm going to say...
How many routes each airline has out the airport? Is that what you're basing this on?
No, I'm going to go personal here. So, yeah, my sister lives in south of France, so I normally have to fly Ryanair. So, on that personal basis, I'll go with Ryanair because it gets me to see my sister.
Oh, that's a good one.
EasyJet.
EasyJet for me. Yeah, 100%. Okay. Spider-Man or Superman, Sandra?
Spider-Man or Superman? Superman, because he holds down a career as a journalist and saves the world.
Not that he can fly.
He's a scoop.
What about you, Paul?
Got to be Superman, hasn't it? When I was a kid, everyone used to love a bit of Clark Kent, didn't they? You know.
Yeah. Oh, I'd go Spider-Man so I could swing through the buildings like that.
Yeah, but
and climb up and all that. I know. I think Spider-Man's well cooler. Okay, go on, Sam.
Okay. Mountain holiday or beach holiday, Paul?
definitely beach. I'll be honest, like I'm the worst person for like, exploring and stuff like that. See, weird given my job, but I think just with like work and kids, I've got,
Yeah.
like when I get a chance to take a holiday,
Switch off.
no, it's just easier. It's easier on the beach, isn't it?
Oh, fair enough.
Mountains for me. What about you, San?
I don't know. It's nice to go and sunbathe. Okay, if you had like a couple of holidays a year,
No, you've only got one for the rest of your life.
One for the rest of my life and nothing else. Beach, but mountains is a close second.
Okay, cool. Okay, helicopter or plane?
Oh well, I can't answer this one.
Every
Paul.
day of the week are playing for me. Every day of the week. I don't like flying that much, to be honest, which is bizarre in my job. You wouldn't see me in a helicopter, no chance. Absolutely no chance. Like my wife tried to get me in one of those. When you go to Vegas and they do those over the Nevada, and I can't think of any Grand Canyon. Can't think of anything worse. Honestly, I was like, not a chance. I'm getting in that.
What about you, Sam?
Well, I've never been in a helicopter, so I'd like to go in one. So I don't know. So at the moment it's plane because I don't know any difference. Now you've been in both, Helen, haven't you?
A helicopter's well more exciting. Running across the tarmac, jumping in the helicopter, off you go. Yeah, you feel like you're in a movie. So yeah, I'd go helicopter 100% more than a plane. Although I love flying as well, but I'd definitely go helicopter.
Right, Paul, I think that's hilarious because have you only worked for airlines your whole life?
Since honestly, since 2006 until COVID, I was traveling so much, and we've just started again. I'm not scared of flying. I think it's just when you've done something so much.
But you must have been in US Airways before then.
That's it. US Airways was 2000, I think, to 2006, and then ever since then, my job has always involved travel and taken me all over the place, really. But I think I've never been afraid of flying. I think just more, if you're in something all the time, like you're doing it for your job.
It's like when people go on holiday, isn't it? When people work away and they go abroad, like to something, and everyone goes, "Oh, it must be boss that you're staying in a hotel here," and they go, "Oh no, we're in work. You're not with your mates. You're in a hotel. You end up on your own in a hotel room and sort of things like that, isn't it? And as you say, flying and traveling and stuff like that. It becomes boring, doesn't it?
Yeah, go to somewhere for one night, stay in an airport hotel, come home. It's not like you're going to Jamaica for 5 nights and working for 50.
With your mates.
Yeah, definitely not.
I know. Right, San, we've done this or that. Okay, we're going to pass it over. I'm going to let you introduce Paul, and we've got till about 35 minutes.
Okay, brilliant. So I'm absolutely delighted that Paul's come on the show today. I've been trying to get you to come on for a while, haven't I? But you've been busy and stuff like that because Paul and I used to work together a long, long time ago. We worked for the same firm. Certainly, I was on the Italian desk, wasn't I? And you did groups for Spanish, I think, for US Airways, which used to be in Silk House Court, which is apartments now. And Paul, when you went on and you progressed, haven't you, in your sector and industry, and you've got a very important job now, because you're responsible. Basically, you're the director of aviation development, so getting all the new routes into the city and encouraging airlines to come to Liverpool and getting us to new cities and things like that, which just benefits the whole of the Northwest. And so I would love you to tell us about your journey and how you came to do what you did and what's happened recently. And then let us any top tips. You heard it first at the airport here, and any new routes that we can look forward to going to.
Yeah, no, sure. Thank you, Sandra. Like you said, we did work together a long time ago. I seems another life, done it in some respects, but I did I went to France for university, studied French. I got a job at US Airways where they were hiring like multilingual people. I had no real interest in aviation, I can't say. I wasn't I meet lots of people in this Field who, they was on the edge of a runway spotting planes when they were 3, and I was not like that, I'll be honest. But that being said, at US Airways, I started to take an interest in the function of an airline, and I thought it was quite interesting. I mean, why do they fly there, and why do they, why is that route like twice the size of that route? And just started asking myself questions, and I ended up moving from Liverpool in US Airways to a company called ASM, which was they are still going in Manchester. They're a consultant for route development, which is basically how you get new routes. And working on the group's desk, I think at US Airways, you start asking these questions about, could you move that flight 2 hours later so we can accommodate people that want to get on the flight? And then I worked in Manchester, I think, between 2006 and 2013-14. I worked for lots of airports there. So, the company was a consultant, basically would work for anyone in many different streams. So I was doing things like 1 minute you'd be working for Amsterdam, supporting their team on we want a flight to Mumbai. Can you guys help us do the analytics on the route? And then it'd be, working for a Greenfield in Poland who decided, mayor decided he wanted to build an airport. I need someone who knows what they're talking about. So, can you write a 10-year traffic forecast for a new airport, and who could we attract, and all this type of stuff. So that was I might say young, I wasn't that young, but it was a company full of experienced people, and I wasn't. So it was a real steep learning curve in Manchester, I have to say. Really challenging, in terms of learning things quickly, working with people who've been in the industry, 30 years, who don't really want to ask the lad from Liverpool his opinion who's just joined. So it was it was tough, but I have to say, from a knowledge base and skill wise, it was brilliant. And
so,
then,
Paul, when you say that you're doing analytics and things, does that mean you're sort of looking at industry in the area, who might come here on business, or is there a holiday market, or what do you mean? What type of?
I mean, if you look at, I'm trying to think, route. If you look at like Liverpool to like Frankfurt, for example, I mean, which the new route with Lufthansa. I mean, that I joined Liverpool in December 13. I had my first meeting in Frankfurt in 2014, and I was sat with a colleague who was a great guy, and we went out and we met. There was about 4 guys from Lufthansa in the room. Honestly, they didn't listen. I don't think they listened to much we said. They were probably thinking, why are these guys here talking to us? We fly to Manchester 5 times a day. You could see, I joked after the meeting to my colleague, Mark. I said, I think that, one of them was writing down what he was having for dinner. There was a real sort of, they were very polite, but you could tell they just weren't interested in Liverpool. But as time progressed, I mean, the things we showed them was the growth of Liverpool as a city. So we'd work with partners in the city. We worked with Marketing Liverpool, the universities, Liverpool Football Club. So the universities, I have to say, were brilliant in terms of the data they supplied to us, how many overseas students they have. Our job is a bit around the market, understanding what sort of ticket price they'll get in Liverpool, how a route to Liverpool can complement what they do in Manchester, why it's a good thing for Liverpool. We show them how many passengers are traveling from the Liverpool region to markets that you could fly from Liverpool. And the big question, they always said, well, why would we be in Liverpool? We're in Manchester. And I think over time we showed them how the city had progressed. And they came, they sent a delegation here in 2017, and I think at the time we were kind of surprised they'd come in a way, because we felt it was, we were pushing against the door that wasn't really open. And I think when they came to the city, I mean, we couldn't have scripted it better, I have to say. It was a beautiful day. We took them down the waterfront. It was buzzing. There was cruise ships in. We took them to the arena. The guys at the arena showed them around. We took, the guys at the Chamber of Commerce talked about trade. We'd done a presentation with Peel Holdings, who owned the airport at the time, about how Manchester's was squeezing Lufthansa. And I think a lot of things came together, and those guys came to the city. We took them out for dinner, and the comment one of them made was, did you hand pick that waterfront? Because it was almost like there was Americans coming off the boat,
amazing.
Chinese and Japanese taking pictures, and all the things we explained about demand to China, demand to Japan, which you're not getting. They're going on Emirates and Etihad, and Liverpool can take this traffic for you, and all the things we'd explained on a piece of paper. And our job is, we're passionate about Liverpool, but if you're a guy sat in Frankfurt, he's probably interested, but they know nothing. And the reality is we're very close to Liverpool. And I think sometimes we feel people know more than they actually do. And when certainly my team's experiences, there's times you go overseas and they couldn't pick us out on a map, and I would argue to, if I pick 50 people out of Liverpool, show me where Munich is, they might know it's in Germany, well, they probably do, but, and it's our job to educate, the guys who make decisions. And airlines, you look at an airline like Lufthansa or Ryanair, and you think of this corporate machine, Ryanair, 500 people, but ultimately pitching a route to them, you probably go down to 3 people, and I always say, businesses are run by people, and people can be influenced, and
by their experience and the vibe and how you make them feel. Paul, I want to know where you took them for dinner.
Panoramic, the big tall building. So
especially on a beautiful day, and you can look out, isn't it? The views are amazing.
And that was the point of it, really, was, unfortunately, what I found sometimes in this job is that airlines, particularly ones who aren't in Liverpool, the first thought is London, Manchester, Edinburgh, and then we'll fight out amongst the rest, Liverpool, Leeds, Newcastle. And, it's our job to show them we're not like a secondary city, even though, we're the 11th biggest airport in the UK. The city's the 5th biggest. And that's something we're always trying to emphasize. And, it's when you bring people here, I have to say, we've brought a lot of airlines into Liverpool. Some have worked, some haven't. But the consistent theme is, I think people are surprised when they come here, because they have, unfortunately, there is a perception, when I lived abroad way before this job, you say I'm from Liverpool, and people are like, industrial
stereotype, isn't it, of years and years ago, and nobody sort of sees the beautiful waterfront that we've got and how we've developed the city.
They don't.
Did the capital culture help on that?
I think so. It just gives a bit of status, and all the things that come to Liverpool, even things like, Liverpool One and the arena and all these things we now take for granted. There's people who live in the city, I can go to the arena. And we didn't have that before 2008. And, we often talk to, when we talk to Lufthansa, one thing they were really interested in. They were kind of convinced after they came here that they could sell, they thought they could get German tourists to Liverpool on their own plane. They felt confident that we can put passengers on their plane. I think where they were nervous was, is there any business, and we know there's business, but that was, can you sustain a daily flight into Frankfurt and get us corporate business? And I think, things like the arena where they're bringing in events, daily conferences, without those things, you kind of got a problem as a major city. So
I've done a bit of German with people who do trade fairs abroad. So, and we're teaching them German specifically for going to trade fairs. They've never ever been able to go from Liverpool before with like an airline like Lufthansa, where you want to be able to change your flights all the time and things like that.
We wrote an aviation strategy in like 2018 for the airport with the owners, and one of the core pillars to develop was hub services. And we met lots of people in the city, stakeholders at the airport, stakeholders in the region, and really, when we say we are the biggest city in Europe without a hub link, it's tough. And people would say to me, well, why don't we? And unfortunately, we'd had a history of things coming in. KLM was in till 2012 and failed. before my time, you know, and I think Aer Lingus came in and tried a bit to North America, didn't quite work. And the big thing for this project with Lufthansa, it has to work. And the thing for us is we felt we picked the right partner, not just because I'm saying it because they're here. It was the one we targeted. You know, Germany itself is unserved. They have a huge network out of Frankfurt, Star Alliance partner.
Yeah.
You know, one of my colleagues, Tom, who's our social media manager, he flew back the other day and he said he was sat next to a guy on the Frankfurt flight who was come from Nigeria to come to Sefton Park, you know, to the festival.
Oh, the African, yeah.
Yeah, I love little anecdotes like that because before that, we've always said, and we've said it to the city region, if Liverpool as a city thinks its best move is to not have an airport or not to have a viable, growing airport.
Yeah.
Well, if you think you can operate Liverpool by flying from Manchester, well, the big point I would say to anyone is this: is if you're trying to win and develop business into this city and win investment, well, if the first thing that guy who signs the deal is if he sees Manchester, what's he think? You know, he lands in Manchester and then travels 60 minutes or, you know, 80 minutes if it's a bad day and thinks, why don't I just put my business there where I've just landed? I can't be bothered with this car drive or train journey. So I think, you know, developing the airport way beyond my time at Liverpool is something.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people, when they're investing in that, they look at the infrastructure, particularly going to another country. And if you look at Germany, so for me, for the size of Germany, it doesn't have as many airports as one would imagine. And I went to do a language course there and I remember flying and having to get the train, but the trains there are fantastic. And the train service is really good and it's quite comparably priced, very competitive, which is how they manage with so few airports for the size of the country. And I think other people might assume, well, we'll just get the trains everywhere. But if you can fly directly into the city, and of course we've got so much industrial space there, nearby industrial estates, you know, even in Speak itself, that sort of area, and then going out Halewood into Knowsley, and they've got the links now by the road. It's perfect, isn't it?
It is, and that's the big thing. I mean, Liverpool will always have the airport will always have a good leisure product. I think where, you know, if you want to go to Spain, Portugal, France, you know, happy days, you know, and it's my job to retain and grow that, which we do. But the big thing for the city and the city's investment in the airport is they should never take their eye off the fact that, you know, how invested Manchester as a city region is into the airport. And there's a reason for that, because it creates a huge amount of, you know, economic benefit. And, you know, Manchester's at the point now, I mean, you look, it's probably one of the biggest regional airports. I mean, in Europe, you will not find an airport like ours that has such a big competitor as close, and us being as big as we are. And, you know, I get it when you know, you're getting a taxi and people tell you we should be bigger than Manchester. That ship sailed a long time ago. What we can do is, you know, work with them, not work with them, but we can continue to grow while they grow. They're not going to stop. We're not going to stop. And the Northwest region is a powerhouse region. It really is.
Absolutely. And, you know, Paul, we've been hearing all the things going on at the moment about issues with baggage and stuff like that and security over the recent months. And I'm not too sure what the issue is they're saying about staffing and stuff like that. How have you found it at the airport in Liverpool?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to comment on Manchester. And I have to say, I mean, we've had a little bit of fun on social media and, like, you know, a little nibble at the problems there. But I think on a more serious level, we've, you know, when it's come to like news features, we haven't, because it's been a real tough time for aviation. It has. I mean, you know, we basically shut for 2 years. We had no government support as an industry. We had furlough. You look at Europe, Ireland, these, you know, airports receive huge amounts of cash because the government's realised it's a national infrastructure. And you have, you know, basically politicians now saying, well, you guys at Manchester should get your act sorted. Well, what did you expect them to do? You know, they've gone from a 30 million airport with a huge cost base to not being allowed to fly for 2 years. And in January of this year, you've got Omicron coming and, you know, basically warnings, no one will be allowed to travel again. Do you expect an airport in Manchester to say, oh, we'll just keep everyone? You know, where it's slightly different for us, we're smaller, and sometimes smaller can be helpful because it's, you know, in our instance, we had a very lean cost base already. We'd almost done the thing by nature of having Manchester next door. We really have to cut our cloth. You know, we have airlines that, for the most part, our mix is more low cost than others, but that's because, you know, it's not because we want to be just low cost. It's because we're next 30 minutes away from a 30 million airport, and you know, that's the nature of where Liverpool is at. But in this instance, it's been a good thing in some instances because we've recovered quickly. But when furlough came along, we probably didn't have the complexities of a Manchester, so we didn't get rid of people. Being blunt, I think Manchester probably did. So, you know, we managed to retain staff. So when you know, when in January we all sat with our head in our hands in our CEO's office going, Jesus, you know, not again. When the market's ramped up and everyone wants to fly, well, we had people, we weren't needing to go out and say, you know, oh, we need to go and get 40, you know, security agents now on a 12-week training course. So, you know, I'm not going to sit here and say it was, you know, it's lucky, because it isn't lucky, because we retained.
Of course. And it's kind to do that as well. It's charitable to be like that.
You know, I think from a management perspective, there was not very few of us left in the airport in April 2000, you know, 2020. The decisions were taken to, you know, especially with furlough, it was easier to keep people at that point. Without furlough, I don't know. I'm not the CEO, but probably a bit tougher. But at the same time, it really has allowed us to come back quickly. We you know, we haven't had problems, but at the same time, we don't want to sit there and come out on BBC News and put the boot in, because you're probably, you know, a few people off having a similar problem as they have at Manchester, and it's probably harder to defend as a 5 million airport. But I would say to people who may have been put off travelling or are worried, in Liverpool there are no problems. You know, we're talking maximum, I would say, in the mornings, our busiest time, oddly around 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. when all the planes depart and everyone wants to check in. You're probably talking 20-minute queues max. Where
it's nothing, is it?
Brilliant.
It's nothing, and there's no. I would say, I mean, we changed our logo a while ago, you know, from Above Us Only Sky, which was moved to Faster, Easier, Friendlier, really to try and.
I like that.
It was really to try and be current and what are we about, you know, and that is what we are. I mean, we've kind of lived and breathed that because we have to, because you know, we kind of have to be better than Manchester in many senses, because people expect it, and that's worked for us. You know, people can, you know, you can park up and you can probably be out your car, sat having a beer, as we were talking about before, probably in 15 to 20 minutes. And, you know, I don't think you'll get that at the Heathrows and Manchesters and Gatwicks particularly now.
And for me, I'll tell you what I think is excellent is if you come to Liverpool and you're hiring a car. The car hire place, they're all just there. That is the easiest thing of all. Whereas when you're in Manchester, if you've hired a car, you've got to go off somewhere in a bus and everything. And it literally is a stone's throw. You can just walk over. And I think that's really easy.
You're right, and I think, to be honest, we're seeing the benefit of it. I mean, one thing we've noticed since February, March, when things started to get a bit more normal, is it's the flights that we have are busy, and I think there's a bit of a fallout of, you know, if you look at, I was doing some work the other day, really looking at the how busy the flights are, because we're trying to plan our next 3 months. So, you know, my team does all the passenger forecasting, cash forecasting, how busy are we going to be, and the flights to the likes of Alicante are just, you know,
they'd just be chocker, like triple over, wouldn't they?
Busier than they were before COVID, you know. And
everybody wants to go on holiday, don't they? Do you know what I mean, and stuff like that.
They do, and I think people have read the stories at Manchester and they're like, you know what, I'll go on
We'll go from Liverpool.
Liverpool Airport website will go on EasyJet and see where you can get to from Liverpool. So no doubt helping us.
I want to ask something, Paul. So we're going to Frankfurt at the minute in Germany. You're saying, are they likely to look at some other routes as well, maybe with them? Do you think down to Munich or Berlin?
I think possibly Munich would be next. I mean, the two biggest hubs are Frankfurt and Munich. I probably, you know, I probably sound really boring here, but we've just got to make this one work. And, you know, for people listening who want to travel to global destinations, I would encourage them to support the service, because ultimately I can talk till I'm blue in the face and give them nice spreadsheets and PowerPoints, and you know, all these businesses are in Liverpool, but people do have to use the service. And I will always say that to our people who work at the airport as well. You know, don't be sat there in 3 years saying, "Oh, that didn't work." You know, we try and book all our company travel where possible. We went to Bergen to a conference 2 weeks ago, and we used it, and I have to say it was pretty easy. You know, it's nice traveling out your own your city airport. You know,
yeah, definitely. Yeah. My uncle Ron's listening in, and my uncle Ron says, "Have you met Michael O'Leary, the boss man at Ryanair? And if so, what is he like?"
Ever controversial, Uncle Ron.
I know.
That's a little question.
He's probably someone who's difficult to meet, I would say. I met him once while I was at Liverpool Airport, and it was actually the most informal meeting I've ever seen. You know, it was someone rang me and went, "Michael O'Leary's here and he wants to speak to someone at the airport," and the then CEO wasn't in.
Thank you.
So someone said, "Paul, can you arrange to meet?" So I rang his PA and went, "Where is he?" "Starbucks." So walked down to Starbucks in the airport. You know, I had a suit on at the time. It was a bit more formal then, but we were made to wear a suit. And he was, you know, I found a persona, you see, where he's very loud and controversial. He was actually the opposite. He was really, really polite. I mean, he saw me and went, "You know, we must be paying your airport too much if you're wearing a suit." You know, and my sense of humour, and he actually was really calm and polite about the airport, asked lots of questions about, you know, how we're finding life and that. You know, people say Michael O'Leary, and airports generally, when they go to see Ryanair, I think panicking because, you know, the nature of the beast is Ryanair probably calls most people cards. Whereas, to be honest, he couldn't have been more of a gentleman in the half hour I spent with him. He's really, really nice guy, but on a working level, you know, we don't tend to have the chance to speak to him.
No.
Brilliant. Thank you for that.
Have you got any exciting things in the, you know, coming up in the future? Any new routes maybe that you're allowed to tell us about?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing for us is going into COVID. I mean, it's been, you know, I remember in March 2020 when we started getting these rumblings of this. Yeah, I think we all started seeing the news in January and Feb, didn't we? And one of the things my boss said, and we were having a laugh the other day. He's the CEO at Liverpool. He's a Geordie, like, and a good fella. And we were having a laugh about not a laugh about COVID, but looking back on how weird it's been. And he said, "Do you remember, Paul, when I asked you about this? Like, it didn't even have a name, did it, at the start?
No.
This flu thing in China." And I remember he'd said to me, "Will you go and like see if like what the impacts are when you get similar things?" So I was like Googling SARS and all this stuff, and then looking at these like data systems we have and seeing, well, and I basically did all this boring work and said to him, "Well, I think in China when SARS came, I seem to have like a 2 to 3 week issue. You know, a little bit of a dip, but nothing to worry about."
I'm glad it wasn't just us who thought it was 3 weeks.
Yeah, so John, my boss, like the shareholders are writing to him, like starting to think, "Well, this doesn't look great," and he writes back to them, "Oh, don't worry about it. Paul's told me it's fine." He's like, "Paul said it won't be a problem," and he went, "And on top of that, we don't fly to China, so don't worry about it." And he was like, "I'm gonna print off that email and put it on the wall." It's like my career down moments. But
I think loads of people were the same, where I was staying with John and Sean, and they literally had to sit me down and say, And I was going, well, was it 2 weeks, not one? I said, well, it'll be, and they went, no, Sandra said, this isn't going to be. And I went, no, it is. Don't be ridiculous. And I remember that, and I couldn't comprehend it, and I think so much, especially people in business, we were all in the same mindset, like what.
When it started getting a bit, real for us, it was like, because we had quite a big network to Italy, we got like Rome and Milan. Remember, it was Italy really was the first European city. And all of a sudden we started seeing like, the numbers on Italy declining. Yeah. Even like our own staff were coming into me going, why aren't we doing anything about these Italian flights? And I'm like, it was not up to us. It's the airline who has to cancel, and border forces, the people who man the borders. We are not allowed to man the border. So we can't stop someone coming in the country. And then before you know it, all of a sudden you've got nothing. I mean, we were looking a few weeks ago at like stats of COVID that someone had asked for. And March 20, we did something like 340,000 passengers, which should have been about 400, but it fell off. And then in April 2020, we did 800 passengers for the whole month.
Wow. And who would those people? What sort, like when we were in lockdown, what sort of people were flying?
It was a bizarre time, Ellen. Honestly, it was bizarre because we went from having 200 people to like there was me, the CEO, the finance director, and the operations director was pretty much it in terms of non-operational people. So
Paul, do you do a lot of cargo flights?
Well, that was the thing at the time. We decided to keep the airport open for one main thing, which was Loganair, who fly Liverpool to the Isle of Man and Derry. We kept the Loganair flight on. They wanted to run it because it essentially there's a patient health contract on it, so it brings sick patients over to Liverpool, who has a better hospital infrastructure. But it was coming in the morning with like 4 people on. It would go back out with no one on, come back with no one on, and then take the 4 people back.
Gosh.
And then we did a few repatriation flights, like a couple of Norwegian airlines flew, taking Norwegians back.
Yeah.
But we survived really in terms of, the airport was closing. I mean, we literally, it sounds ridiculous, but the flight had landed, we'd offload the passengers, send the plane off, and literally shut up shop. It was like pull the shutters down, we're closed till 6 o'clock. And we were very much doing open on demand. I mean, freight, you mentioned it, Sandra. We did a lot of PPE flights, automotive flights, and we were being blunt. I mean, the revenue on those flights was quite good, and it helped us. Helped the airport through. We were still losing money, but it was something that worked. And then the other, not benefit, because you can't have a benefit from COVID, but the things that we saw a lot of was sports flights. So when football restarted and all this stuff, like literally all the teams were flying, because of the bubbles. So even Liverpool and Everton typically would use the airport for longer flights, but we were getting some like Preston North End and Blackpool were flying to Bournemouth, which is purely a safety issue. Really, it was. They're having COVID tests. They can't. Sounds horrible in a way. They didn't want to mix. They just want to get on a plane.
Because they want to play and everything else. Yeah.
So it was just a weird time. I mean, our jobs went from sort of, my job typically is like long range planning, really, to very much, are we open tomorrow, guys? And if we are, we're getting requests from all kinds of people. I couldn't write it. Honestly, I'd love to sit back and be like a rich guy in Spain wants to come home and can you open the airport, please? This is ridiculous. Literally brokers ringing me up going, how much to open your airport? And I was like, well, who is it? It was to that level. It was,
it's amazing, isn't it? Having the power to phone an airport and say, can you open for me? It's just like nothing.
I'd be surprised how many people ask, honestly. I mean, we took a view of, we're not opening unless it's of, real significance, i.e., is it a medical emergency? Does it help? Is it a medical help to someone? Is it bringing PPE in?
Yeah.
Is it helping people get back to normal? So sports flights. And then, you know, the big thing for me is like at Liverpool, you take a route like Liverpool to Belfast for granted. You know, we have so many of them. But it was like really exciting news when I remember getting a call off, you know, my counterpart at EasyJet, and he was like, I think we're going to be able to restart Liverpool to Belfast. He was like, and this is EasyJet, you know, I don't know, second, third biggest airline in Europe, not flying anything, no flights. And he was like, Liverpool to Belfast is one of 3 routes we're bringing back. And yeah, it was like really exciting news. Oh, we're getting 2 flights. But it was like the first signs of, you know, because like you guys
coming
say,
back out.
Yeah, you go from that sort of, this is a short term thing, but you start panicking because you think, well, not just from a work perspective, but personally, you're like, when's stuff getting back to normal? You know, like, you know, you've got kids. It's like, well, when are my kids going back to school? When are my kids going to be allowed to play with their mates? And, you know, when an airline rings you and says, do you know what, Paul, there's enough demand for us to fly a plane to Belfast. You're like, it's a bit of a, you know, gives you a bit of a kick of, you know, optimism because you're like,
a bit of hope, yeah.
Well, I'm very optimistic about travel in the future, Paul, for the airport. Tell us some exciting routes we've got coming then.
Yeah, I mean, we've announced, obviously, we've got new this year. I'm trying to think of what exciting. Well, Lufthansa to Frankfurt. We've just announced Malta again, which starts in the winter. Las Palmas in Gran Canaria. We've announced Reykjavik in Iceland.
Oh, yes. That's so cool.
It's a new airline in Liverpool called Play. So they start thinking October the 7th. So I went to Iceland in 2018 to meet them to talk about Liverpool, and what a destination, I have to say. I mean,
everyone, you know, our friend went, didn't she, Christine? Everyone loves it who goes.
Loads of people who, and it's like the Northern Lights, and there's like loads of stuff, and like loads of dead cool things to do, and it's definitely on my list, Iceland. Yeah,
I would say honestly, it's as like different a place as you'll ever go. You know, and it's only 2.5 hours away. It's brilliant. And then next year, we're just in the sort of realms now of planning a few. But I mean, we're expecting 5 or 6 new routes into France and Spain next year, which I hope we'll be able to announce in the next sort of 3 to 4 weeks.
Brilliant.
Which, you know, I think a couple of them are good city breaks, which I think that market of any's taken a little while to respond because, you know, it's people aren't back in the habit yet doing 2 days abroad. But yeah, definitely. I mean, the big thing for us is to try and get more leisure-based stuff, because one of the things that happened with COVID is we went from when you're not allowed to fly, the routes which were working through the tough parts of COVID was all Eastern European, because no one wanted to go on holiday. No one couldn't go on a city break. The one thing that people wanted to do was go back and see the family. And, you know, the UK does have a big overseas population, the Northwest particularly, big Polish, Romanian population, Bulgarians. So we got these flights back on quite quickly purely because there was a demand. And then we were after more of this. It's like, you know, I'm talking to guys at Ryanair and saying, well, you can't fly here. What about places you've never heard of, probably? You know, I was like, fly to Sibiu in Romania. And they're like, where? You know, why? And I'm like, because you can only fly from London and there's a demand. Kosice in Slovakia, Kaunas in Latvia, all these places where you probably look at me and go, why the hell are you asking someone to fly there? But in COVID, that was where people wanted to go. I mean,
and have any of those flights stayed on, or if they was that just a short term?
Actually, all of them. But what we're seeing now is a bit more transition to normality. Whereas those flights were particularly busy, but I'm talking like relatively busy. I mean, you know, we had flights, honestly, like 189 seat planes to Alicante going with 3 people on them, 4 people. You know, demoralizing to see. You know, when, you know, we're looking at the revenue coming through off the flights, and you're like 4 people flying to Alicante.
You know, Paul, I had to go to London on a train, and I didn't see anyone else on the train, and they didn't serve food or coffee or anything. and Sean had done me a little packed lunch and everything for me. And somebody came through and checked my ticket, and I didn't see another person get on to London from Liverpool. It was just mental.
It's scary, isn't it? I mean, the only route that like survived, we had at one point we had one international route, and it was Bucharest and in Romania, and that, you know, we called it bulletproof at the airport because it didn't seem to matter what happened. There was always 180 people lining up to fly on it. And, you know, we're just trying to, you know, it's probably only in the last 6 weeks we've started using the word normal again in the airport. We haven't. You know, we've sat there and not really worked to budgets, whereas before COVID, it was methodical planning of every passenger movement. And, you know, I would say it's only the last few weeks we're talking about a normal trend and, you know, a bit of confidence that I can go into an airline and say, do you know what, you should fly to Toulouse from Liverpool. Why? X, Y, and Z, and confidently think, I know it will work. Whereas, you know, let's all, you know, touch wood and hope there's no more pandemics, and, you know, I'm sure there'll be challenges around the corner because there always is in aviation. But I'm like in a positive moment. I think like the airport has come through an incredibly difficult time. I mean, you couldn't write this stuff. You can't write.
So many sectors have been affected, but it's exciting for the future, though, isn't it? So we all need to stay at the airport, definitely, and use it. And go to Germany via Frankfurt. Use Lufthansa.
Yeah, definitely. That's going to be our big shout out to everyone. Get on Lufthansa, isn't it? Wherever you go, and go via.
We've got 70 routes there at Liverpool, and, you know, it frustrates us when you see, you know, I still think with Liverpool that if you walk through Liverpool 1 and say to 50 people, write down how many routes there are in Liverpool, I think 20 say under 15. And I think people still think, oh, you know, you get to Alicante and and
I would never have thought there was 70. I would never have thought.
Yeah, but you know, that's it, and it frustrates us when passengers from Liverpool, you know, have to use Manchester. We get that, you know, I do. There's times we can't fly. It's not Manchester, but you know, we have to be in that position where we're telling people, you know, you can fly to Rome from Liverpool, you can fly to Milan, you can fly to Geneva, you know, you can fly to Nice, and people, you know, people are using Liverpool because, you know, it's like anything in life. When you've had an airport the size of Manchester dominating the landscape since 1960, it takes time for people to, you know, I think the younger generations maybe, but, you know, get brought up with Liverpool being a bigger airport. But let's be honest, until 1998, you know, Liverpool didn't have an airport really to speak of. It was.
I flew for Monarch, didn't I, in the early 90s for 4 years, and I had to drive to Manchester every day to work, and it was so frustrating. And then I went down to work in London for BA. It was so I've always like followed the airport. I love it when the airport gets new routes, and it's good for my business as well with languages. I just love it. I think it's great for the city, for the whole area. It's brilliant.
I have to say, passengers have been so supportive. You know, I mean, pre-COVID, we were used to people complaining about car park charges, and they still do. But at the same time, we sense a real desire from people in the Liverpool city region to want to use Liverpool. They write to us and tell us, and, you know, a message from us is we're not sat there waiting for nothing to happen. We work really hard. Winning airline routes is difficult. You know, it's probably knocking the door open's the hardest bit of the job. You can get very close, and, you know, I think since I've been at Liverpool, it's probably got, I don't know, 10 new airlines. I've probably met 150. You know, it's like we were, you know, we're never quiet. We're never not trying, but the financial, you know, commitments that go into these things from the airline and the airport are extreme. And you know, it's but every effort's going in to make sure that the airport, you know, keeps growing and keeps gets back on it.
Brilliant.
Keep up the fantastic work and everything.
Definitely to keep up the fantastic work, and let's hope we get even more. Let's hope the 70s 100 from next year. Make you dead busy. So we've got any quick red face moments. San, have you got a red face moment for us? Something slightly embarrassing.
A hideous on my arm that I've had to go the walking with on Saturday. That's the only thing this week. What about you?
No, I think I've been safe this week.
Oh, well, good week then. What about you, Paul? Have you had any embarrassing moments in your career?
Oh, in my career, like many, I would imagine. Actually, yeah, I've missed a couple of flights really, which given my job, really, I got the wrong train and then missed the flight. That's happened to me a couple of times. Actually, one that does spring to mind. We went to meet an airline in Scandinavia. I think where was it? Sweden. And me and my colleague flew over, and we'd met them about 6 months before. So I texted the lad who was working, and he said, "Yeah, we're still on, Paul. No worries." Landed in Stockholm, walked to his office, and I was with my boss at the time. I was like, "Yeah, I think we're going to get this one, and I'm really confident we got this one." Got there, and the office was boarded up, and I was like meeting him in 5 minutes. So I rang him and went, "Where's the office?" And I went, "I forgot to tell you, we've moved." And we ended up having to get a taxi. It was about 75-minute drive on the other side of Stockholm. Turned up an hour late.
Oh no!
They were the Scandinavians are lovely people, and they were
They're quite
so
cool.
nice. And he was like really, because you don't think really, well, have they moved office? He hasn't said anything, but I had a bad vibe in the taxi with my boss at the time.
We've nailed this, and then it's boarded.
I was like, let's get with this one.
In the bag.
Done deal. This one,
brilliant. So do we have any shout out to the grown-ups? I'm going to go first, okay? I've got a shout out to Sandra and to Ronan, okay, for looking after the pop star. So while we were away, they looked after Poppy. So thank you so much. And she's under my feet now, and she's still chilling.
But she was brilliant, much better than last time, Paul, when I minded the dog. And I woke up and the dog had got into my room and her head was on the pillow next to me in the night. And I was like, oh my God. It was really good. She a little whimper, but I go to a business meeting and I sort of leave the house at like 6 o'clock in the morning on a Friday. And Ronan said when I went out the door, he had like proper howling, not whining, but like he said, I've never heard a dog howl like that before.
Oh, that's because she'd missed you. I've also got a shout out to Des. So Des made award-winning scones, and I went there today because rather than us going to the office, I went to his house and said we did some way, and he gave me one of his award-winning scones, and they were absolutely incredible. And the last one is to the Vibe. So the Vibe is a little community centre for people with learning disabilities, and they've actually got a radio station for this week, and it's on 87.7 FM. And I was there. They invited me to be their guest today, and it was just fab. And they were hilarious. And Jenny's doing an amazing job. So yeah, if you can listen out to 87.7, or give them a little text or a shout out on socials, that'd be cool.
I saw that today. I've got a few shout outs as well for the grown-ups.
Okay.
Victoria Chung, who's absolutely gorgeous, from Opal Rooms Beauty Spa in Smithdown, by Greenbank Park up that way. They won a Business Game Changer UK. They won a national award for her salon, and she's so lovely. And you were talking before, they had a terrible time. All the salons, it was horrendous for them in lockdown. So she did really well. Shout out for the young people, I should have said before, and the grown-ups, for the teachers. Where I used to teach, one of the schools in the Observatory School, they won a regional robotics competition, and they're all kids with different, they're neurodiverse. They're not in mainstream education. And to me mate's mum, Karen Davis, who has Karen Davis Sugar Craft, and I remember them setting that business up, doing little molds in the shed in the garden. They're just an incredible business now, and they've got a massive stand they've had at the BBC Good Food Show, and that was fantastic.
Wow.
So for them, they're just such kind people as well. So they're all my shout outs.
Amazing. Have you got any shout out to grown-ups, Paul, very quickly?
You know what? I'm going to give it to my dad because he's 76 and he's flying to France on Friday for the first time since COVID, and I think he's a bit nervous. So I'm just still made up.
Go, Mr. Winfield. You'll smash it, mate. You'll be sound.
He'll be fine.
Brilliant. That's amazing. Paul, do you have a mantra that you live by? Because we're going to close the show, but just a little something that you live by, a little positive quote that we can leave with everybody.
I think for me, honestly, I don't know if it's a quote, but what I would say is I didn't work the hardest at school, if I'm honest. And I always say that to my kids. I was a bit lazy at school. And I think, I kind of try and push them harder now. So it was like, just when you get up, even if you're feeling crap and tired, just, always give it 100%. Because I have in my working life, actually, but I look back at school and think, why was I like that?
But you've
I've
done
worked
all right.
in
You've
my
worked hard.
working life, so I'm always like pushing the kids to, not do what I did at school.
Amazing.
Great ambassador for the city, you really are.
Thank you, Sandra.
Yeah, my Uncle Ron says, great show, well done. We're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much to Paul for giving us time. We know he's super busy, and for all the amazing stuff you're doing for our city. Massive thank you to Sandra and myself, and we'll see everybody next week.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you so much, Paul.